The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. If you or anyone you know might be interested in making a television show, please call 260-421-1250.
I would like anybody who's new, if this is your first meeting, please stand up. Look at this. Look at this. Welcome, welcome. And I should make you all introduce yourselves, but I will take it easy on you tonight. Mostly because we're already running 5 minutes late, and we have to be out of here by 8 o'clock. A lot of you came in through the CAP program, and others came in from the gallery. And welcome, welcome to our tribe. There are about 150 of us now, and we are on our way to 200. We want to hit 200 before this year's out. So if you have artist friends, we would welcome them. My name is John Kelty. I am the president of the Guild, been president for a couple of years, and 3 years ago, and before then I was vice president. I've been around. Let it go. We do have a new board member this year. Our vice president is a new member. Some of the people from last year remember her, but I would like to introduce Hillary Couture, who will be introducing our program tonight.
I don't have to pull it down too low. How's everybody doing? Well, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guests tonight. We have two of them, and many of you already know these two gentlemen, but I'm fairly new to meeting them. And this is Tommy Woodson, and this is Dan Woodson, and they're brothers, and they've been painting together for about 20 years. They're self-taught. And I can tell you a little bit about Dan. He's had numerous awards. He started the Indiana Plein Association, and he is a part of the Painting Indiana project. He founded the New Richmond Art Group in 2011. The Plein Painters Association he started in 1998. He's had all these awards for Best Impressionist Landscape, Best Traditional Oil, many from the Hoosier Salon, Best of Shows, Awards of Excellence. I mean, the list goes on and on. And his work is in galleries all through the U.S. And I think I better get him up here to talk about Tommy, because he knows more about him than I do. So, Dan, thank you.
All right. Now, can everybody hear me? They've got, oh, there. Okay, well, they've got this on. Can you hear me with just this? Okay. Yeah, my name is Dan Woodson, and as she said, my brother Tom. We have painted together. It's been quite a few years. Tommy tells me every time we go do a talk, he says, now don't get emotional. But sometimes I just can't help it. And I'll go ahead and tell you a little quick story about Tom. Is my dad died when he was 67, and he died of lung cancer. And he had about 2 years to live, and he says, I don't mind dying, but he said, I worry about Tommy. And I told my dad, don't worry about him, because I'll take care of him. usually I do a lot more talking before I even start something like that. But anyway, that's how Tommy and I are. And Tommy is with me. Even if I have to take my dogs to Indianapolis to the vet, he's got to go. And it doesn't make any difference where I go, he's going. And he says that he wants somebody there to take care of me in case something happens. So anyway, my brother and I, we paint together, have for years. How Tommy actually started was, I used to run the sign department for Marsh Supermarkets in Yorktown, Indiana. And they were gracious enough to let me use the sign shop so I could paint. So I'd go in on the weekends and I would paint, and then sometimes they would let me like do it during the week if I didn't have a whole lot else going on. My brother came over and was watching me paint, and he said, "Man, I'd love to be able to do that." And I said, "Well, you can." So I gave him some brushes, some canvas and paint, and sent him on his way. And I thought, he'll get tired of that real quick, and that'll be the end of it. Well, he came back in a couple days and brought these two little landscapes that were god-awful bad. They were really bad. But he wanted to get some more canvases. So anyway, I gave him the canvases, and then he left. But in a couple days, he brings back these two little street scenes, and they were fabulous. And when I saw those, I mean, it's another one of those emotional things. I mean, I was so excited because I could see what he could do. And so anyway, I went and rented myself a studio uptown in Muncie, and I rented him one too. And I bought him brushes and everything he needed. So from that point on, he's been painting. And that's how Tommy and I learned how to paint, is we just look at other artists, what they do, because we didn't know anything about it really to start with. And actually for years I wanted to paint, I just never would because I knew I was colorblind. So I just never would really attempt it. And it seems kind of odd because in my whole career, I've worked in sign shops. Matter of fact, I was just telling Avon a while ago a little story. I got out of the Army like in, I think it was 1968, and I was just looking for a job. So I went to this sign shop and asked them if they would hire me. They said, "Yeah, we need somebody, you know, to clean up." So that was my job, is I swept floors and washed windows and, you know, clean up the alley, do all that stuff. And I did it minimum wage. It was $1.25 an hour. And, you know, I was just happy to, you know, to get the job. So I watched these guys letter these trucks and these signs and all that stuff. It was absolutely amazing how they could do that free-handed. They would just draw a top line, bottom line, and what they call a crow track. They would just real fast, just kind of scratch it in there. Then they'd letter it. And it was just absolutely beautiful. And I thought, oh, I would love to do that. So they used to go to breakfast every morning, and then they'd get back like at 10 o'clock. And I thought, I'm going to ask them if they'll teach me how to paint signs. So that's what I did. I asked them, I said, "Would you teach me how to do it?" And the boss says, "Well, we'll teach you, but you're going to have to do your regular work you're going to have to practice on your own time. So it was probably close to 5 years. I never went to lunch. I took my lunchtime and I practiced. I'd go home at night. I had a brown refrigerator, and I'd take a white water-soluble pencil, a Stabilo, and I'd draw letters and wipe them off and draw letters and wipe them off. But I finally eventually got to the place, because they would let me do junky work, old real estate signs and that kind of stuff. And then it finally got to the place I could letter trucks and all that. But it was just one of those things that took everything I could to practice. Even I would take I'd been married before. I took my ex-wife out to Kmart. I'd sit out in the lot with my painting stuff and tape a piece of metal on the dashboard and practice lettering. That's how I did it. Well, it paid off, because years later, I became the boss of all these people. And they worked for me at the sign shop. But anyway, I had been working there like a little bit over 5 years. They had this truck they wanted to get lettered for Judd Construction there in Muncie. But the guy wanted his truck the next day. So they said, would you stay and letter the truck? And I said, yeah, I'll do it. So they all leave. And on this truck, it was a red truck, and they wanted a little cartoon of a little cartoon character, a guy carrying tools. And so I needed some flesh tone. So normally I would mix it up, just white and a little bit of orange, and that made a cartoon color. But I see some on a shelf, and I'm saying, oh, I don't have to mix any of that up. So I get it, stir it all up. I use it, letter it on all four sides of his truck. So they come in the next day. You know, I got the truck done probably around midnight. They come in the next day, and they said, what in the heck did you do to that truck? I said, what do you mean? The little character's green. And he said, what in the hell are you, colorblind? I said, yeah. I've been there all that time and never told him I was colorblind. So then from then on, I had to go ask, you know, if there was any jar with paint in it that didn't have a label, told what it was, I had to go ask and find out what it was. So that was really the only really bad trouble I had there. So anyway, it went on and on that with the sign painting. It was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because believe it or not, I used to be a pretty wild guy. And I think the military kind of slowed me down a little bit. And then when I went to work, I mean, at first I was like, I didn't care. Nobody's going to tell me what to do, that kind of attitude. But I finally learned that these people are taking the time to teach me something. I need to pay attention and do it. And so it's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me, because I decided from then on I was going to do my very best at whatever I did. And I wanted to give people more than they asked for. And over the years, it's always paid off. I mean, I've won national awards in the sign business, you know, for things that I've designed and that kind of thing. And so when it comes into the oil painting, I already knew I was colorblind, and when you're in a sign shop, for the most part, all the cans have labels and you know what it is. And And I had people around. If I didn't know what it was, they would tell me. And I would, and I never would really oil paint because I was afraid of it. So then I finally decided, a friend of mine, after I'd started working at Marsh Supermarkets, him and I decided, hey, let's try to do some oil painting. Well, I would go, he had a little art studio himself, so I would go over to his art studio. We'd go in there and just make stuff up and start painting. We didn't know what in the heck we were really doing, but we would paint for about 2 hours, and then we'd sit around and talk about it for about 4 hours. And it was just a lot of fun to do. So I never really got really serious about painting. And then years later, my friend passed away and of a blood clot. And I had to hire somebody because he was working for me at Marsh. We hired him there. So, you know, probably a year after he passed away, I got a gal who was a sign painter. This guy had taught me how to paint signs, and he also taught this gal, Ann Carter. So I went and talked with Ann and asked her if she wanted to come to work at Marsh in the sign department. And she did. And it was her and I who had went to Indianapolis to do a job on a Sunday, January, and it was cold outside, and we're coming back, and I just wanted to get outside and paint, and you know, when it's cold and miserable, you just want to go do something warm. So I tell her, I say, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to paint every county in Indiana. She said, well, there's 92 counties. I don't think you'd want to do 92 counties all by yourself. And then she said, what if you had more guys that would help you? And she says, what if you made it like 5 guys and kind of emulate the old Hoosier group with their 5 guys? You know, stupid me is saying, oh yeah. And then she's saying, you know what, wouldn't it be neat if you had a book printed and had the stuff hung in the museum, like the Indiana State Museum? And I'm thinking, yeah, this sounds great. So by the time we got back to Yorktown from Indianapolis, we've got this all figured out, what we're going to do, see? And we neither one knew anything about starting something like this. But on Monday, we started making some phone calls, and I never even knew other artists other than me and my buddy who had passed away. And I wasn't really a painter. I thought I was, but I really wasn't. And so anyway, we went to the Hoosier Salon and asked them, do you know any artists that might be interested in helping us do this? So that's where we came up with the other names. We actually asked people like C.W. Mundy and Todd Reifer, because we're thinking C.W. Mundy's famous. We'll get C.W. to do it. Well, he turned us down. And matter of fact, he called me on the phone. I bet he talked to me about an hour how bad our program was. You know, well, you're getting these guys and they're not right for this, and you know, you're going about it all the wrong way. Well, you know, I'm thinking, if you don't want to do it, just say I don't want to do it. Instead of keep me on the phone telling me how bad it was. And so anyway, finally got him off the phone. And I'm thinking, damn, I'm glad that CW didn't do that, because it would have been the CW show, is what it would have been. And so anyway, and Todd Reifer, the very same thing. We actually met in Indianapolis and had dinner with him, and he turned us down. And of course, Todd's a real good friend of CW's, and some of the verbiage that Todd was telling us was the same thing that CW did. So you know they were talking and kind of thought, we're not doing this. But anyway, we trudged on. I had no idea how hard a project like this is. But it took us about 2 years. We wound up getting Lyle Denny from Muncie, Bob Everly, Ron Mack, and Don Russell, and myself. Now, I didn't know these other guys, except I did know Lyle Denny in Muncie. So anyway, we started doing this thing, and we tried to do what we thought was right. And Ann and I really didn't know nothing about any of this stuff. We didn't know how it would work out, any of it. So what we did was, well, actually, Marsh Supermarkets did a lot of stuff for me. You know, we're thinking, okay, we got to raise money. You know, if you're going to have a book and do all this stuff, you got to have money. So Marsh automatically gave me like $10,000 to put in it, which that was great. And I thought, yeah, this is pretty easy. No, not really. And so then Marsh also had a printing company print some really nice high-end brochures for us. And we'd already asked the Lilly Foundation, we asked them for $40,000. Well, they replied back was, we don't do that kind of thing. So we let it go. When we got the new brochures in, I told Ann, I said, let's send Lily a brochure and just give them a little, you know, story about how we're doing. So she did that. She mailed them the brochure and told them how we was doing. They called us and said, we want to give you $50,000. And of course, we didn't have money to match that. So what they did, they took the time and the effort to pass it through the Indiana State Museum. Then we could get the money. So that's what Lilly did. They gave it to the Indiana State Museum, and then they, in turn, gave it to us, because there somehow wasn't a requirement that way. So anyway, the things that Ann and I were talking about getting this thing started was, we wanted to get a book. We wanted to be in the Indiana State Museum. And then we were going to have an auction, you know, and sell the paintings. Well, it turned out we went down to IU Press, and Ann and I did, and we talked to, I think his name is John Gallman. He was the president of IU Press. And we're just telling him what our project is, and we wanted to see about getting a book with this stuff printed in it. So he's telling us, well, we could do this size, you know, he told a smaller size. We could do 3,000 of them. It's going to run around $50,000. Thinking, damn, man, that's quite a bit. So Ann told me, she says, don't you have some of your paintings in the truck? And I said, yeah, I got some in the back of the truck. Why don't you bring him in and show him? So I brought in 3 or 4 paintings and showed him. And all of a sudden, everything changed. He looked at the paintings and he says, you know, I think we could do a larger book, a coffee table book, and We'll do 5,000. They actually did 6,000. We'll do about 5,000 for $15,000. So that worked out good. The only bad thing there was one of my paintings was of Greene County that I brought in, and he says, I'm going to get my secretaries to come and look at the paintings. So they come in, and the first thing that lady said was she looked at it, look at that beautiful green sky. I had no idea my sky was green. So anyway, anyway, we got that. And within a year, they sold the hardback books out within a year. And you started seeing them on Amazon and stuff, where you would pay like $300 to get one. And so that the book was a big success. Now we took all the profits from the book went to Riley Children's Hospital. So that was a good thing. So they wound up getting quite a bit out of that. So then we went to, we were trying to get into the Indiana State Museum, and I called and talked with Jim May was his name. He was the head curator there. And every time I talked to him on the phone, you could tell he was like a smart ass. He just didn't seem friendly. And the very same thing happened. Ann and I were in Indianapolis for something else. And I said, I'm going to try to call Jim May. Since we're here, maybe he'd see us. Because he turned us down, I'm too busy, no time right now. So I told him, I said, we're in Indianapolis. Could we come and see you? He said, if you can get over here right now, I'll give you 15 minutes. Okay, so we rushed over. That's when it was over on Alabama Street in the Indiana State Museum. And so we go in there, and I bring my paintings with me, or I have a whole big stack of them, because actually I always painted them on my canvas like Tommy's doing on something else. So anyway, I could carry a lot of them in there. So we took it and we show them to him, and man, he just changed like that. And he says, you know what? We normally charge like $2,000 for this space. We're going to give it to you. We'll pay for the reception, which is about $10,000. And he promised us all this kind of stuff, and he followed through with it. When we did have the opening at the museum, they had big banners outside. It was impressive to see all of that. And what he said was we broke records for attendance for any project that had come there to see different shows. So the whole thing, that was surprising as all get out. So here we have big success on our books. We have big success at the museum. And then we got to auction the paintings off. We actually took them around all over Indiana to different places, and we showed them for like a year. And then they went to Jackson Wycliffe Auctioneers in Carmel. They said they would do that. Now, Ann and I had went there and talked with Sue Wycliffe and told her our idea. We wanted to auction them. And she's telling us, she's saying, living artists, their work doesn't go for that much. And she said, I don't know if it would really work or not, but let me talk with Dennis, that was her partner, and we'll let you know. Well, they talked about it, and they said, yeah, we're going to set it up and give you a chance to do it. Well, the auction came. Of course, all of us guys come. They wouldn't let us in the auction. We had to stay out. And they were auctioning those paintings for like unbelievable prices. And I had one painting there. It was a picture, believe it or not, of a ditch down in Scott County, and the thing went for like $9,000. Well, when I had talked with Todd Reifer about doing this project, and of course he turned me down, he said, well, what's the artist going to paint? I said, well, the artist can paint anything he wants to. We don't want to limit the artist. We just want him to go to that county, paint whatever he feels like he wants to do. I said, you could, paint a farm, you could paint a building, a river. I said, you could paint a ditch. And what he said was, nobody's going to buy a painting of a ditch. Anyway, years later, we was out painting, and Todd was there, and him and I were kind of back away from the rest of them because we smoked and they didn't. So we're back there smoking cigarettes, and he tells me, he says, I really missed the boat. I really wanted to be known as an Indiana artist, and that would have done it. So he missed his chance. But anyway, Lyle Denny and myself, Lyle sold he had 19 paintings to do, sold them for $133,000. I had 18. I sold mine for $122,000. And then it went down to like $89,000, $79,000. And Don Russell only got like $29,000 for his, because his were all the same size. It looked like all the same color to me. He brought them over to the sign shop that I was running, and he lined them all up against the wall, and they're all the same size. And we said, Don, do you want to go back and maybe do some different sizes, or some? He said, nope, I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. I went out and I painted these, I'm done. Okay, so that's what happened. Now me, I worried about it. I did not want to wind up being last on the totem pole. So I did worry about it. Now I can look at those paintings now and I think, ooh, these look bad. I wish I had done it a lot years later, but that's the way it is. And a lot of people you see who know about the book, they say, oh, no, I don't see anything wrong with them, they look good. Well, they look pretty bad to us. So anyway, and at that auction, I did sell the highest priced painting. It was Marin Bluff, and it was a picture of the Wabash. And I sold it. Time they paid their buyer's premium, they paid like $15,500 for it. So anyway, we were really happy. So this whole thing was a big success. Now, when we did this project, we knew that we had to, we were going to try to get grants and get money from people. So we knew we had to have some kind of organization. And I'd already kind of was wanting to start a group. So Ann and I decided that we were going to start a group and call it Indiana Plein Painters Association. So that's what we did. And even that, that thing has been going on for 20-some years. And it seems stronger now than it ever was. And a lot of it is all the board members they have on there. They really wanted to keep going. I actually thought it would fizzle out after a while, but it didn't. So I'm pretty happy that it did keep going. And I mean, the IPAPA, they seem to have their hands in about everything that goes on. You got to be careful with them though, because sometimes, like down in Brookville have a paint out every year. It's Tommy and my favorite paint out down in Brookville. We go down there, stay about 3 days. The town feeds you. You know, you can sell your paintings. They don't charge you anything, that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, Steve Cox, who's the judge in Franklin County, Tommy and I stay at his house every year. And he tells me, he said, yeah, IPAPA is saying that it's kind of like their paint out. He said, this is not IPAPA's paint out. They're guest. The town does this. And they have. So you got to kind of keep an eye on what they do. Yeah. But I know that when I first started this, I actually started IPAPA because I wanted people who had never painted before or who were really new at it. I wanted them to be able to go and be in an organization that didn't look down on them and helped them, because I know I was in that boat. I really didn't know anybody. I really wanted other artists to help me. And because I didn't know anything about it, really. And I mean, eventually I got it done. But what had happened, a friend in Muncie, they have a show there, and it was at the convention center. And so I'm going to get into this show. A friend of mine who wasn't that good at it, but he loved doing it. And I talked him into it. I said, Gary, why don't you turn some of your stuff in and try to get in the show? So he said, yeah, I'm going to do that. So he drives uptown in a company truck. He was a heating and air conditioning guy. Driving a company truck, has a wreck. It's blazing hot outside. He finally gets his paintings to the place. It turns out he got them rejected. Then when I go to the reception, you got all these ladies in gowns and drinking champagne, and the mayor's there, all that kind of stuff. And when I walked in, I don't dress up for stuff like that. I dress like this. So I go in there, and these women are looking at me like, thought maybe I was some homeless guy or something. And then it pissed me off. So I thought, you know what? I'll start a group. Now that's what I thought. And then, of course, it was like 2 or 3 years later before I actually did. But my idea was I wanted people to be able to hang their stuff up somewhere where people could come in and look at it, where their family could come in and say, my dad did this or my mom did this. So that's what we did. Our very first show we had was in Indianapolis at a mall. I forget the name of it, but it was on the west side. But it was a big mall. I forget the name of the mall. And so anyway, I built freestanding places where they could hang their stuff. Okay, so here we got some really good artists who hangs their stuff up, and then some god-awful paintings in there. But you know what? These people got to hang their stuff. And that's really what I wanted IPAPA to do. And I wanted it to be so that when you do go out and paint, you feel safer having groups of people. I would never go out by myself and paint out somewhere. Tommy and I both were up in, where was that, Noble County? You know, and you get a whole truckload of idiot boys come by there and, you know, they're hollering at you, cussing at you, throwing things at you. And you just don't feel safe doing stuff like that. So anyway, out of the Painting Indiana, then we, that's how we got IPAPA going. So then it's been kind of like everybody thinks that everything I do will turn out to be like roses, and it doesn't. So a friend of mine and myself, we decided, hey, let's start a little group here, and let's just try to get the best artists and make it real exclusive. Like I was in a small painting society in Brown County that Wayne Waldron had started, and that's what they did. They only picked maybe 1 or 2 people a year to be in this. So you had a small group, and of course CW was in that. And so anyway, so I was kind of like maybe wanting to do that. So then I start talking to other artists saying, would you be interested in doing this? Then when they started saying, who else is in it? And I say, well, so-and-so agreed to, so-and-so. Oh, that person is not a good artist. Why would they be in there? And then I'm thinking, you know what? I'm not doing this. So I told the people, you know what? I'm not doing it. When people are against other people like that, all these artists started somewhere, and they started out doing crappy stuff. And if they worked at it, you get better and better and better. You know, and then if you really got a passion about it, you're really going to do well. So these people that they're criticizing are people who eventually will do better than them. And that's just the way it is. I know in IPAPA, I try to pay attention when I am out with IPAPA people on what they do. And I can remember when Donna Short, Pam Newell, Carol Wasson, a lot of them, now this is like 20 years ago, they wasn't really that good in a lot of these things. And that's when Tommy and I jump in and beat them all. We did, over and over. Now it's hard to beat them. And of course, Donna Short won like, what, 3 awards up there? And anytime I see these gals, I tell them how proud I am of them. They have really come a long ways and made some pretty big strides. So, matter of fact, I just bought my wife for her birthday a pastel that Marianne Davis did. Marianne Davis has come a long ways. And I bought that pastel from her, and I look at it and I'm thinking, dang, I wish I could do pastels. And a matter of fact, I was talking to my wife last night because she's got the painting sitting on a footstool in a TV room. That's where she sits all the time, on her phone. And so anyway, she's looking at first, because I had it sitting in the kitchen on the counter, and she's already in bed. So I just left it sit there. Next morning I get up, and it's not there. So she's got it in the TV room. I walk in the TV room, and she says, wow, this is beautiful. I've never seen you do anything like that. I said, I didn't. That's Marianne Davis. Oh, that's Marianne Davis' stuff. And I mean, I'm not the kind of guy to buy paintings, but I love that thing. So, and then, you know, I'm telling Tommy when we're there, man, that's the best thing in this show. Tommy says, yeah, it is. I said, yeah, I'd like to get that. Judy would really like that. And yeah, I might buy that. And then I'm thinking, I don't know if I want to spend that kind of money to get it. Then Big Tom comes up to her. Hey, Marianne, Dan really loves your painting. I think he's going to buy it. Then I'm committed. I got to buy it. But I'm glad I did because my wife really liked it anyway. And by the way, she sits on the couch really doing this with that stupid phone. She's been a teacher, and she just retired. This is her first few months home. And she's taught 52 years. 3rd grade. I tell everybody, I've been married to her for 41 years. Feels like I've been in the 3rd grade for 41 years. That's what it feels like. So anyway, hey, I do want to tell you one little story that I was going to tell you to start with, but I started with the stupid emotional stuff that I can't handle. Tommy and I, after we did the Painting Indiana project, I was asked to go to a lot of different libraries and different places and talk. And what I did is I would take a few finished paintings that were like in gold frames and stuff I just finished recently. And then I would take a painting that one of my first paintings I ever done, which is really bad and embarrassing to show people. But I was trying to make the point that this is where I started. And I've had to paint hundreds and hundreds of paintings to get to these paintings. And that's what I did. But it was one of these things. I had like a couple hours. They said you could talk, which my wife says they only have a attention span of 15 minutes. They're not going to want to hear all of that. I said, well, that's what they told me to do, so I'm going to do it. She has probably a 30-second attention span when I talk to her. I got to make things quick. If I bring something up to the couch for her to see, I may be too close. Step back, step back, step back. You know, like you would a 3rd grader. No, but after I did all of that, I had to go do a lot of talks. And I think it was Wabash. We had to go up and... Huh?
You've heard this story, Tom?
Oh, he's heard it over and over and over. Yeah, Tommy always tells me, yeah, Dan, I know you did this. I know you did that. And I said, well, Tommy, I'm telling these people, what do you want me to do, lie so you can hear something different? But anyway, we go into this library, and the lady says that I got about 2 hours. So, so I just start with my spiel, and I don't introduce Tom. Tommy is sitting at the back. Now, before we even went in there, we're outside getting my stuff to bring in, my paintings and stuff. And this little lady, she was probably 85 or 90 years old. And she's got this cane, and she's walking like this. And we kind of watch her go in to the museum, you know, and that was it. So anyway, I get up there and I start talking. She sits in the back row. Tommy comes in and sits down beside her. So then I talk maybe 45 minutes or so. And the lady who's running the place says, I think we'll take a break. And I'm thinking, good, my throat's getting tired. So we go outside and take a break, because Tommy and I both smoke, so we go outside. And when I get out there, Tommy is like laughing. I said, what's the matter with you? He says, you see that little old lady we saw coming in there? I said, yeah. He says, she poked me and says, this guy's putting me to sleep. So, anyway, she didn't know that he's my brother. So we go back in there and we, resume this talk I'm doing. And the lady running the place says, by the way, your brother is here, isn't he? I said, oh, yeah. Would you like to have your brother stand and introduce him? Sure. Stand up, Tom. Tommy stands up. I said, yeah, this is my brother Tom, and all that. He sits back down. And that old lady punches him harder and says, you didn't tell me he was your brother. Yeah, so anyway, I was going to tell you guys that to start with, and I kind of got carried away, because I would hate to see anybody go to sleep in here. That'd be embarrassing. So anyway, doing the IPAPA, doing the painting Indiana. Now, and I always thought, after I did that Painting Indiana project, I'll never do anything like that again, because it was pretty hard to do, really. And especially when you're asking people for money, and I don't like to ask people for money for anything. And matter of fact, when we didn't have money from Lilly, Ann Carter had a building and sold it. And she only got like $25,000 out of it. But she said, I'll save it. And then I said, well, I'll pay the rest. We're going to have to do this. If we can't get money, we have to pay for it. So that's how committed we were to do this. When you tell people what you're going to do, you need to do it. And so anyway, I'm starting to lose my train of thought here. Heck, I forgot what I was getting ready to say. Probably wasn't that important. Tommy will make fun of me the rest of the night. So anyway, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to get it to where I could tell you after all of that's happened. Oh yeah, and I said, I'll never do that again. And I really didn't want to. And then Avon calls me and says, hey, would you and Tom like to do a river project? We're going to paint the rivers in Indiana. I bet it didn't take me 30 seconds to say, yeah, we'll do it. I did think about it afterwards, and I said, oh, look, Avon, if you're going to do all of this, I don't want to get involved with a lot of this stuff. I just want to go out and paint. That's all I want to do, is go paint and turn in my paintings, which basically that's about what I've done. Avon is working his tail off to get this thing done. The stuff he tells me, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm glad I'm not doing this. And he'll find out. He'll probably say the same thing, oh my God, I'll never do that again when this is over with. But hopefully everything is going to work out and that kind of thing. Because I really had my doubts a lot of times when we did the Painting Indiana project. And one of the best things about it is when you're traveling around all over Indiana, you find all kinds of people who are very, polite and giving. I mean, Tommy and I came from a place in Muncie called Shedtown. So you could tell what your neighbors were like. Some of them actually lived in sheds. But we grew up really poor and that kind of thing. But Tommy and I, when we go out and travel around and paint, we can know somebody for like 2 hours. And the next thing you know, say, hey, you can go to our lake cottage and stay. And I bet that's happened probably 10, 12 times, hadn't it, over the years. People are just real free with let you, they don't know us, but they're going to let you do that. So anyway, Tommy and I, we've had a lot of adventures that you can kind of look back on and kind of wish I could do some more. It's getting to the place anymore I can't go out and walk all over the place and paint. I've got arthritis in my knees and my hips, my hands, and I hurt all the time. And it's just getting a place that, I mean, I'm 76 years old now, and I don't want to do nothing but just I sit in my studio and paint. That's all I want to do. So between my wife and my 2 dogs, it's hard to get anything done. Because when I go out to my studio, I want to be left alone. But she calls me on the phone. You need to go out to Walmart. Missy needs some more food, or Millie. Okay. You going to take the dogs to the vet this afternoon? Yeah. It's just something all the time. I get up in the mornings. I take care of this. They're 2 little Westies. It's Molly and Millie. And I got to feed them in the mornings, give them medicine, take them out, carry them to the dog run. You know, carry them back, feed them, do all that stuff. It takes me like 45 minutes every morning to do that. Then sometime in the middle of the day, I got to go take them out to the dog run. And then before supper, I take them out again, feed them supper, put eye medicine in both their eyes, and then wait till bedtime. And then, you know, and give them a snack, take them out, put them to bed. Every day of my life, I do that. You know, I'm just saying. I mean, I love those dogs. So anyway, that's just kind of like my life, really. Huh?
How do you paint being colorblind?
Oh, yeah, that's one thing they said I needed to talk about. Actually, I didn't even know I was colorblind. And when I was in elementary school, whenever you're drawing, or we know with watercolors or finger paint or whatever you're doing, I thought I was just stupid when it comes to color. I didn't even know what color blindness was when I was a kid. I don't think I've ever heard that phrase. I just thought I was kind of stupid. But I managed to get through life, and I'd been in the military twice. I actually joined the National Guard in Muncie and went to Fort Knox, Kentucky. And then I went to Fort Sam Houston for medical training. I spent 4 years there. Then when Vietnam come around, I joined the regular Army. Had to go back to Fort Campbell for basic training. And then I went to Oahu, Hawaii, Schofield Barracks, for infantry training. So I'll tell you a real quick thing that doesn't have anything to do with painting. But I was in the infantry in like 1967 in Hawaii. And a lot of you probably remember the My Lai massacre. Well, that was my company. And Captain Medina was my company commander. And turns out that they called me to the orderly room in Hawaii and said, "You're going home." I said, "What for?" "The Red Cross is sending you home because your wife is having problems, and so we're going to send you home." I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go over there and go home, take care of business, and come back. Well, it didn't work that way. And it took them like 2 weeks for me to sign out. I had to go do all kinds of stuff. And this master sergeant went with me. And I told him, I remember crossing the parade field, and I said, "Well, I'll be back. As soon as I take care of this, I'll be back." And I really thought I would. But I didn't. Next thing I know, I see on TV, because back then during Vietnam, they showed, talking about body counts and all that stuff every night on the news. And all of a sudden, I see these guys, and I'm thinking, I know these guys. And it was guys in my company. And it turned out they were involved in the My Lai massacre. But I'm the only one out of the whole company that got to come home. And I never went back because they left for Vietnam right after I left. And a lot of people say that it was one of these rogue things where they just went up and started killing all these people. That's not how it went. That's not how it was. When I was in Schofield Barracks in the infantry, we trained, and we were supposed to kill men, women, children, animals, destroy the food. And the reason why, they say, was because these villages would help the enemy, feed them, and hide them, that kind of thing. So anyway, when I could never figure out, well, how come nobody tells the truth of what really happened there? Well, and I never heard anybody really talk about it. Years later, I went to a place in Muncie to have a new suit. So the guy is fitting me. I said, "I've never seen you here before." I said, "Are you new?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm new." He said, "I just retired from the military." I said, "Oh, yeah?" And then he starts telling me he'd actually been in the military a lot longer than I was. But it turned out when I was in the National Guard, I was at Fort Sam Houston taking medical training. So was he. But he went on, I came home, spent 4 years National Guard, and, so we totally separated. Well, he went during Vietnam to Cambodia, where we wasn't supposed to be. And they put him in a special forces unit, but he's a medic. And he says, they wouldn't let me stay until I went to the Philippines and took training. Then I could come back. And see, that's what I did. Well, then he started talking about all the training they did. And I'm listening to it. I'm not telling him nothing, but he's telling me. And because I'm amazed to hear somebody else talk about it. But they did the very same thing. Now, we called them total kills. He called it something else. But it was basically the same thing. Then after he told me, I went and told him. And I said, "How come nobody knows the truth about this stuff?" He said, "Can you imagine what would happen to you if it got out that you were telling everybody this?" And it started getting out. So, you know, it's shameful for even think the United States would do stuff like that, but they do. And, uh-oh.
I point to my wrist. You're fine.
Oh.
You're fine. Does anybody have any questions for Tom while he's doing this beautiful painting behind this? This is amazing, Tom.
Doing it from a picture or just your mind?
Just from memory.
Yes, she wants to know if he's doing it from a photo or just from his mind. Hmm? Memory.
Here, Tom, speak into this.
Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne. Learn more under the Explore tab at acpl.info.